Ideally, you want to have the proper cybersecurity in place. And that's line of defense number one. We don't want them to come in. But if something does happen to where maybe, we weren't able to actually apply the professional recommendation within the organization, line of defense number two would be cyber liability insurance. And so cyber liability is huge. There are certain controls we want to adhere to because those companies require it. And so when it comes to the cyber liability insurance coverage being important, who better to share with us that than Mr. Jeremy Duncan of Country Financial? Jeremy, go ahead and take it away, buddy.
All right. Thanks, AJ. Man, some of those stories that you and James shared there are pretty shocking, aren't they? Uh, and one that James had mentioned in a conversation earlier this week is about just how many businesses end up having to close their doors after a breach event. It's just pretty staggering when you think about what that risk really means to a business.
And that
Yeah.
statistic, 60% of businesses that have a breach close within 12 months.
Just that's just absolutely wild. Looking at the picture there, it's only a few years old, and there's a whole lot less gray hair in the beard, and just kind of goes to show how time goes by. But along those lines, I've been
You
an
have to
agent.
talk to
So
Sharma. Shut up now. Go ahead.
yeah. So I've been an insurance agent with Country Financial for over 22 years now, helping my clients with all of their insurance needs. And over that time, think about just how much it has radically changed in our world. Unfortunately, both consumers and insurers have been slow to adapt to that changing world. For example, when I started back in 2003 and was speaking with someone about, say, auto insurance, the most common bodily injury coverage level was 100,000 per person, 300,000 per occurrence. Well, guess what? That's still considered the standard that most homeowners have on their auto insurance. Yet the costs of cars and medical care and really the scale of insurance claims has dramatically ballooned. Yet folks are protecting themselves like it's still 2003. So it's very much the same thing when it comes to business owners setting up their company's insurance protection plans. Instead of looking at data like what AJ and James are offering about real risks businesses face today, they're instead just purchasing policies that are merely compliant with what their landlord may require for their lease or what the state requires for them to get their license, as a contractor or a permit. The reality is that these insurance policies are a lifeline for business when things go wrong. And making the right decisions in advance can be the difference between a business that continues and one that fails. Business owners need to be better risk managers and recognize these new waves of risks that cyber attacks bring to businesses of all sizes. We've already heard today about the tremendous value that IT professionals can bring to a business to help protect them from cyber attacks ever happening. With pros like James and AJ in your corner, a business can go a long ways towards preventing an attack. But just like that first story about the employee working late at night, it only takes a slightest slip up to lead to an attack. So where I'm going to pick up is what happens next. What do we do when the attack happens? And more precisely, how can a proper cyber liability policy protect your business? All right, so AJ, can you move to the next slide? All right, perfect. And actually, could you move to the other one I gave you? Sorry. Yeah, perfect. While we sincerely hope that we never find ourselves dealing with a cyber incident, we know that many businesses will. And that means that we all need to be prepared with a response. Every business should be working with their IT support teams to ready themselves. That's a given. But the business needs to also have a cyber incident response plan in place. As you see here, the way the company responds to a cyber incident can make or break its financial and reputational stability. So having an effective cyber incident response plan, it's going to require coordination across the company, not just from leadership, but it really needs to involve everybody top to bottom. And so you need to specifically outline and make sure everyone understands who is part of the cyber incident response team, what roles and responsibilities to each of the response team members have, how will the company's key functions continue through the incident, how will critical workplace decisions be made, when and how to inform stakeholders and potentially the public, what regulations must be followed, and when and how to seek assistance from outside parties like law enforcement and insurance professionals. Finally, how will the incident be investigated, and what forensic activities will be identify the cause and prevent future incidents. Like things like this are when the breach has happened, are really going to help to limit the damage potentially if there's a solid plan in place. But then, of course, we have the insurance protections, hopefully, to be able to step in. Businesses, they need to have this response plan dialed in and hopefully never used. But if the cyber incident does occur, a prepared business will have a leg up and have the best chance of getting through the storm. So let's talk a bit about insurance protections that are available to businesses. Cyber liability coverage in the U.S. has been around for 25 to 28 years, originating back in the late 90s. The first widely recognized cyber insurance policy was launched way back in 97 when AIG introduced a internet security liability policy aimed at protecting businesses engaged in e-commerce from risks like data theft and online fraud. Before that, some early forms of coverage existed there in the 90s under professional liability policies or errors in data processing policies, but these were very limited and focused on media or software risks only. The concept evolved significantly in the early 2000s, adding coverage for unauthorized access, work security breaches, and eventually first-party protections like business interruption and cyber extortion. Since the early days of cyber liability coverage, policies have evolved significantly and are now designed not just for businesses in the e-commerce space, but really are designed to protect all businesses, large and small. Even small businesses that deal primarily offline and face-to-face communications with clients increasingly possess sensitive data from their clientele and certainly maintain an online footprint for their own financial records. Today's policies are well crafted to respond to the specific risks that businesses face from cyber attack. So as with most liability policies, there are two sides of the coin, so to speak: first-party coverage or damage sustained to your own business, and third-party coverage or damage to the others. Let's look at the next slide now, or go back to that other slide. Yeah, perfect. And this breaks down exactly what a cyber liability policy is designed to cover today. You look at that first column there. We see the first party coverage. Again, that's damage that your business has sustained following a cyber incident. So let's kind of go through it. There's coverage for data breach response. That includes things like costs for forensic investigation, notification, credit monitoring. Next, there's business interruption. When the cyber incident occurs, everything is disrupted, even with a solid plan in place. This will provide coverage for lost income and extra expenses due to the cyber attack or system outage. I'd also point out that this is quite often a coverage that business owners have neglected to address on their policies, not just for cyber risks. Whether there's been a cyber attack, a burst water pipe, or a fire, business interruption coverage is crucial to keep your business on track while normal business operations are disrupted. I mean, this is definitely a big talking point whenever I'm talking to clients, whether we're just talking about general liability or cyberspace. Next up, we've got data recovery and restoration. Just as it sounds, coverage for expenses to restore your data and systems. Next, crisis management and PR. At these moments, your company's reputation is on the line. So the policies assist with costs associated with reputation management and communication with media and public. Now we've got regulatory fines and penalties. Some policies out there will even be able to cover the fines and penalties that may arise from your compliance failures that led to the incident. Finally, the media liability to protect against claims for copyright infringement, defamation, or privacy violations. I mean, pretty comprehensive to be sure. That's a good summary of the first-party coverage response from cyber liability policies. But then on the other side of the coin, the third-party coverage, there's critical protection provided as well. Where these are really needed is for the fines related to client data breaches, defense and settlement costs for failing to protect data, and defense costs from judgments and lawsuits. All right, so considering how massive of a risk this represents and the stakes are so high for a business, I mean, it would be a shock to most business owners to learn that cyber liability protection is surprisingly affordable. Frankly, every time I create a quote for a client, I have to double check that I didn't enter something wrong, and since the cost is far less than it seems like it should be. I mean, for the past few years, insurance premiums for our health insurance, property insurance, auto, and business insurance policies has just been steadily going up and up and up. But meanwhile, cyber liability options remain very affordable. Now, different businesses have different risk levels. For instance, ones that have access to personally identifiable information for their clients, like social security numbers, are at higher risk. And the size and the type of the business and number of employees all factor into the cost. But one of the carriers that we work with for cyber liability coverage has a $1 million limit starting around $300 a year. Now, the cost will, of course, vary business to business, and insurers are going to underwrite each business. So the businesses that possess that personally identifiable information and clients' credit card and banking information, they'll certainly expect to pay a higher premium. But it's helpful to illustrate that getting cyber liability protection is not a major expenditure, and every business should have the coverage in place. So here's what I would encourage every business owner or decision maker to do today. Talk to your insurance agent, schedule a review with them, review all of your protection plan, and make sure that you have cyber liability coverage in place. I mean, it could be one of the best risk management decisions that you make. So I'm going to wrap it up there and send it back to you, AJ.